coming up on a Grateful Duck edition of Once a Duck.
Well, I mean, he went from Dan Who to Dan the Man. He appears to be clicking on all cylinders. It's hard for me to believe that guy's not even 40 years old.
All that and more coming up on this episode of Once a Duck.
Where's your favorite place to take college game day? And I say every time, Eugene, Oregon.
Folks, welcome into another episode of the Once a Duck podcast. I'm Sam Schmidt. Here with me, as always, the one, the only, the very properly dressed for the occasion, Nick Cody. Nick, how you doing today, buddy?
I am doing quite peaceful, my friend, as you can tell from the outfit. And peaceful duck right here. And this will be the same attire I'm bringing down to Autzen this Saturday. And for those of you that are new to the show, I am Nick Cody, former offensive lineman. This is my co-host, Sam Schmidt. You can find us online at Once a Duck, at Nick R. Cody, and at Samuel101TS. You can engage with us on all the socials there. And we hope you like and subscribe to the show. We've got a big guest today and a big blowout win at Rutgers to talk about, and even better, a big tribute to the Grateful Dead we got to talk about. The uniforms are already out there, Sam, and we got to get your take on it here to start the episode.
I'm a fan, Nick. I know we're going to get into it more a little bit. We start talking about this Wisconsin matchup coming up, but I will tell you, I like it. I like that they didn't overdo it. And also, I really like that we both got into the spirit. You got the hair down, you got the headband, you got the tie-dye. I'm rocking some tie-dye. I've got the facial hair cut just right for the right decade that we're talking about. And folks, it is going to be a lot of fun in here today. But before we get to any of that, we do have to talk about Oregon's big win on the road in New Jersey, taking on the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. It was a 56-10 throttling, very needed after the previous week against Indiana. This Oregon team, they surely didn't let Indiana beat them twice. They came out, even after a little hiccup to start the game. Boy, oh boy, once they got in gear, it was a thing to watch. Nick, I'd love to hear your just initial reaction to this ball game against Rutgers for this Oregon football team.
Well, Oregon went out there and gained the most yards I think any team has against a Power 4 conference team this season is one stat I saw. And when you do that, I mean, you just, especially traveling coast to coast, that means you definitely took a big lesson in practice that week, and it's great to see them rebound. As we've seen around the country, there are some teams that don't go into that week of practice and really rebound from it. Maybe for whatever reason, that team just doesn't have the leaders or maturity or the coaching. But this team obviously rebounds because it's everything Lanning preaches about playing for each other, and this team definitely did. It really didn't matter who was going to be the playmaker or when. They just knew they were going to make a play against the Rutgers team. And again, it looked awesome. It seemed like a great experience for Duck fans. Seemed like there were a ton of us out there. And, of course, with them having homecoming with the light show and everything, the team shut all that out and just went out there and executed. And got to just say it was another great night for Dante Moore. And then shout out for the reps that Brock Thomas was able to get in there. Really be impressive. And I think a surprise to most people that would be expecting a Novosad or Moga out there.
Well, I'm really glad you brought this up because this is a conversation that I've been really excited to have all week. Looking forward to doing the podcast. When Dan Lanning came out at his press conference, it basically said that Brock Thomas had earned those reps. I think there were a lot of Oregon fans that had a lot of different reactions. And I'm going to be honest, I think most of those reactions were overreactions. I think that there were a lot of people that were really freaked out by that going, what does that mean for the other guys? What's happening in that quarterback room? Folks, peace out. Calm yourselves. Vibe a little bit. It's okay. Recognize what that moment means. What Dan Lanning is saying right there is, hey, these specific kinds of reps, the kind of reps that happen when you're up 40 plus points in the fourth quarter. The guy who was a walk-on, who's been with this program, who's been showing up every single day, putting in just as much work as every single other person out there, working his tail off every way he can. Yeah, he's absolutely gained that opportunity to go play in that moment. Now, if you think that means for a moment that if 5, God forbid, goes down in one way or another, that you're going to see Thomas starting a game, no. That is not at all what that means. That is not what is being expressed right there. You're much more likely to see number 16 out there if that happens, number 10 out there if that happens. But what Dan is expressing are in these moments when we are closing out a game where we have a big lead and we have an opportunity to let these guys play, he has earned the opportunity to be in those moments. And I've got to say, he wasn't at all bad in those moments. He really performed. He did just fine. They were moving the ball up and down the field. They would have gotten into the end zone one more time if they didn't just mercifully decide to kneel out at the end of the ball game right there. The way they were running, they would have got to the end zone. And so I really think that, number one, always happy to see a walk-on get some run. Number two, everybody just relax a little bit. It's okay. There's no quarterback controversy on that depth chart. We all know what the order is. That order is for a reason. It's going to be okay.
And even better, you're not giving a potential, film study to your opponents of these quarterbacks, whether it is for transfer portal purposes or for them to not have intel on your quarterbacks. Both really apply in this scenario in modern college football. So, hats off to the coaching staff for kind of probably, being more in touch with the team. And obviously they know what goes on at practice. If one quarterback is lighting it up, and obviously you're not going to just start him over Dante Moore, but you got to give him that opportunity to go in there and get reps on the road. So really love that.
Also,
really,
just one other thing to add to that.
Yeah.
What happens if your number 2 guy goes out there in that moment, takes a big hit, takes something low, takes something high, and then all of a sudden further down the road you have another incident that happens with your starter? All of a sudden you're down to 3 or 4 strings. You're a real backup at this point. That is a way scarier situation. I think exactly what they did was intelligent in that moment.
And one Oregon scene in 2007, 2016, so on and so forth. I'm sure many people older than I are going to recognize a lot more opportunities than that. But again, a great thing about this team is the way it rebounded, and nothing says that more than getting out there and having a first offensive drive where you get the first fumble of the season that you lose, a Gary Bryant Junior fumble, and very unfortunate, but right then and there, teams on the road could fumble and break down and have a complete meltdown. This offense did not hesitate, and this defense didn't blink. This was a 56-3 game until the fourth quarter, and so I got to say, just hats off to this team for the mentality to rebound the way they did.
Well, let's just talk about that, because Oregon came out, right? And I thought, honestly, I know everybody's been complaining about screen passes lately. I have too. Dante did check to that screen pass that ended up being a fumble, and it was the absolute right read. The corners were playing so far off right there. That was a fine, solid opportunity to at least pick up a good chunk right there. And also, it was just a really good play by the Rutgers defender. That was a hat on a ball moment. That was a really good tackle. It forced a big fumble. But then what happened after that? 4 plays, 0 yards. Did somebody hit a career-long field goal? Yes, they did. That's what happens when you play Oregon, apparently. I think we've all found that out by this point in the season. But Oregon's defense responds by not giving up any yards. The offense, 3 plays, 75 yards, touchdown on that next drive. And a guy who I really want to talk about a little bit was able to capitalize there, Noah Whittington. Noah Whittington is somebody who I think we've all been waiting to see that electric burst from at some point this season. We all know he has it. We all know he's capable of it. And what I loved is that it seemed for the first time all season, this Oregon coaching staff was really willing to let him get into the flow of this game, get a feel for what was going on. He actually, I think, had more carries in this ball game than he's had all season. 11 carries for 125 yards. That's averaging 11.4 per carry. Did he have a 68-yarder? Yeah, it was awesome. But beyond that, he had a couple other big bursts, Also, you got to give credit to the blockers downfield. They were really, really doing their job there. But I love the idea of this Oregon team letting a running back get into the flow of the game as opposed to what had been happening, which was such running back by committee, where it seemed as if at times guys were having a hard time really getting their footing in the moment.
Well, and a big part of what I think established us is schematically, coach has made a really interesting adjustment. As many people I had a couple people text me and ask, how often do you see a nose tackle that's angled like that? And that's something that Rutgers is very, like known for doing right now. And one thing that we did to really counteract that on the inside is we moved Harkey to the interior. And we had Janoris Wilson come out to right tackle. And I feel like we had so much interior push on a guy that was getting a lot of, national rep. And I think a lot of that is schematics. They even showed many times that Poncho was just out there, not even having to necessarily get his hands on the block, just beating him to a spot and making sure his helmet and shoulder pads were in the right place to seal off edges. That when you're an angled nose tackle, it feels like, schematically, I can understand how that can create some problems, but it is very easy to start scheming that. And if a team is able to practice for it and really work it into, especially if a zone scheme, I would just be like, excited all day to see him, because that's basically an open hip to just hit with your shoulder pad as you work up to a linebacker. So I've never necessarily understood why that scheme was working, but at least I think that the presence that really brought and the physicality we had on our interior offensive line showed all night.
Well, I think it certainly showed, Nick. And I mean, if you look at the running backs and how they performed, I think it was really obvious. One more thing, though, that I wanted to talk about, especially with a guy like Noah Whittington. And I know a lot this season, people have been talking about, oh, this guy should be starting. Oh, this guy should be the number one back. Oh, this guy. What I love about Noah Whittington, versatility equals creativity. When you have a guy who is capable of doing so many different things as Noah is, you are able to make so many more things happen with the offense. Noah's probably the back on this team who's the most capable of both going up the middle and getting around the outside. And we were able to see that just on the first couple of drives in this game. He was punching it right up the middle a couple of times, took that big one around the outside, was able to skirt out of there and get gone. Then on his second longer touchdown run, it was another one that was right up the middle, following the blockers, doing a really good job, and then bouncing it to the side. Also, when he's on the field, you don't know what Oregon's going to do. Him being out there isn't a real tendency indicator, right? You don't know if he's going to be a blocker. You don't know if he's going to go out to be a pass catcher. You don't know if it's going to be a run to the outside, the inside. And having that versatility allows for the creativity that Will Stein wants to bring to this offense. And I think that having him in those positions is really why he is that number one back. Also, when you have a guy like him out there who's tiring out defenders, willing to put their shoulder on them, and then all of a sudden you have the thunder and lightning tandem come in behind that, all of a sudden a punch in the mouth that you weren't quite getting before, and then all of a sudden you're getting beat with speed you weren't ready for. That's how you build a really, really dangerous backfield.
And not only did that backfield become dangerous, our tight end room was as dangerous as ever in this game. Kenyon Sadiq, they were able to get him out there in interesting ways. Remember when I was talking about trying to set him up for a screen, they were trying to set him up with a nice kind of inside in the middle of the field underneath screen that was scouted out pretty good. Maybe not quite blocked up as much as we needed, but you could tell they were thinking a lot of the same lines. And once we were able to do the reverse flea flicker to the touchdown pass, man, that was awesome. And I hope he's healthy after that landing, but I know he was able to get back out there. But even that gave Johnson even more reps, and we were finally able to see him with the ball in his hands in the open field. And for a guy that was about what I weighed pre-COVID, he could really haul, man. 6'5" and 260, that was insane. I can't believe you could move that fast at that size.
Kamari Johnson, one catch for 56 yards. He got trucking up the sideline. That was a great run right there. That is the athleticism that we were promised when he came over from Louisville, and it was awesome to be able to see that on display. Also, Nick, you mentioned something that I really wanted to talk about, and it was that little flea flicker play. I want to take it back 2 plays before that, because everybody's been talking about the trio of plays that Will Stein had after another, right? The first one, it was that direct snap to Davison that he was able to take to the left side. faked it as if it was possibly going to be a little reverse, and he took it himself. The next, just a swinging gate formation, more or less, that let Benson take it all the way around to the field side and get around to the outside. Finally, that's followed up by the flea flicker that goes to Kenyon Sadiq. Also, you can't tell me that there weren't a couple of times in that game where Dante Moore almost overthrew it just because he went, they're this open? There's no way, man. This is the most exciting opportunity I've seen in a couple of weeks now. Because it was so much fun to see Will Stein actually be able to set up and deliver on those kind of plays. I was sitting there going, man, has there been this kind of setup and delivery since Statue of Liberty to fake Statue of Liberty? I don't know if there has been. There probably has been at some point, but I would just love to hear your take on that series of plays and what Stein was doing to the defense with that trio.
Yeah, it reminded me some of my favorite things we were able to do in practice in my time at Oregon when Chip was able to call a series of plays in a single verbiage that gave you, at least you knew, 3 plays. And it was always my favorite because there was always, and it's really hard to remember the details now, but it was usually something like a power run, an inside zone, and then immediately set up for some kind of a rollout pass. And at least as an offensive lineman, that's all I needed to know. And everybody needed to know what they needed to know from the terminology. But you basically knew which side you were going to run it by based on where on the position of the field you were. Right hash, you were running it strong side or weak side, So essentially we had calls that we ran in practice in a drill that all Oregon alumni from many years of working under Bellotti, Chip, Helfrich, probably until the Taggart would know as Fuji. And it was basically once all your warm-ups were done, we immediately hopped into practice with a basic offensive series against the defense, 1s versus 1s, 2s versus 2s, and you went out there and you went every 10 yards in increments and ran 10 plays as fast as we could run them. Fuji standing for F you Jack, I'm Fujimo, F you Jack, I'm moving out, because we were just moving ass, and that was everything. And whether the play was successful or not, whether the defense got an interception or not, you had to reset 10 yards down the field and run the next play as fast as possible. Man, it not only put stress on our team, put stress on our equipment guys. And the way that we were able to start incorporating play calls into just, hey, very simply, you know what your next 3 plays are off this next call. If we need to remind you, we have individual play calls off that. There were single word verbiage that just lets you know inside zone scheme or, what our pass protection was. And just the way we were able to get those things going in practice, it reminded me how many times you need to rep those in the spring and in the fall to be able to actually implement those into your offense. That just means Will Stein's been here so long and these guys know this offense so well that he's able to coordinate some of those basic play calls into much bigger terminologies to spread them across 3 plays and set them up for perfect execution to be able to exploit the defense in that fast tempo.
Well, credit to Will Stein. I thought this was one of his better called games of his tenure at Oregon. He's had some really, really good ones. I would also say for this coaching staff in general, this was a really, really good bounce back opportunity, and I thought they really took advantage of it. I don't think anybody in that building would say they had their absolute best week against Indiana. And I think everybody did a really good job of being able to kind of recognize some of the mistakes that team made, that coaching staff made in that ball game, corrected a lot of those things. And then, frankly, we're just more aggressive in a lot of situations where you would want them to be. Not dangerously so, not haphazardly so, but taking advantage of what was being given in a vertical fashion. And I think that's something that Oregon fans have really been wanting to see, and I'm something that I was very glad to be able to see. One other thing I was very happy to see, because it's something that absolutely killed Oregon when they were playing Indiana, Dante Moore being able to take advantage with his legs. There were a lot of opportunities, designed or not, where you saw him just kind of take off and take what was there. I loved seeing that from him. For a guy who it seems as if all season has been trying to make the smart, educated, just, the best way that I could say is just the calm decision. I thought there were some times where he said, nope, I got this, let's go, and took the reins in a way that I've really been hoping for him to see, and was really glad to see him taking that ball game.
Love it. And you see on the defensive side, our usual suspect is taking the reign in terms of offensive tackles and Bryce Betcher. You got to love having a team that's led by 2 really fantastic leaders on both sides that are able to go out there and show it to you week in and week out. other people on defensive end, again, Teote getting a sack, another great game, 3 solo tackles, and Finney Jr. again just playing out there fantastic, out of his mind. Doesn't necessarily show up on the stat sheet as much, but that one deflection that he got credited for, fantastic play. Just been an awesome opportunity to watch him. And then the battle on the other side at corner has been amazing to see because you really feel like those guys are competing. Both guys are stepping up. Aaron Flowers out there at 5 tackles total and 2 of those solo. And yeah, you're just out there, man. It's very awesome. And then Devon Jackson had 3 solo tackles, 5 total tackles. Everybody out there on defense was really playing well, and Rutgers, and maybe it might have been a little bit more on Rutgers' side, but it seemed like our defense was pretty close to holding them to a shutout. Besides, again, a record kick.
Well, you know what, Nick? I've been saying it all season long, and we may as well call this our players of the game segment right now. There were 2 guys on defense who I've been high on for a while who really, really showed up in this ball game. First one, you just mentioned him. Aaron Flowers was fantastic. Besides the 5 tackles, the forced fumble, just a real hat on a ball play. And then the interception as well, being able to take advantage of the tip ball, be able to dive in the way, be able to get that one. Really loved what I saw from him. I was posted it online during the game. I was like, hey, I'm a big Aaron Flowers guy. I wrote that after he just had a great tackle. Followed that up with the forced fumble and with the interception. Loved seeing that out of him. Also, this was a great game for the Blake Purchase believers. The Blake Purchase believers, the guys that have been a fan of his since the 2023 season, been waiting for him to get his opportunity. Awesome game from Blake Purchase. 3 total tackles. He was also able to get in there with a couple of tackles for loss as well as a sack. Not to mention he was able to have an interception as well on another one of those tip balls. I believe it was Amari Washington that tipped the ball that he picked off. A fantastic game from a guy that I think has had all the ability that we've been waiting to see really be able to step up and do it. And I thought he did it in this game.
Well, yeah, and it's great to see it. And again, credit to the defense, and again, credit to Rutgers looking just that bad on offense. I'm sitting out there, sitting here watching the game and thinking, ooh, I'm really glad as having a show that same night that, yeah, it didn't have to really stress out too much as I'm trying to go over material and just sitting there going, well, very, very thankful. The one thing I really was frustrated to see is, again, Oregon can't go a week without a little bit of a kicking controversy, can it, Sam?
I mean, would it be Oregon football if there wasn't, Nick? Would it be Oregon football if there wasn't?
So at least we're making extra points. Atticus Sappington and Guy Hurick were both 4 for 4, but we had the 1 missed field goal. And again, it makes you wonder, even I think at least the maybe controversy theory, tinfoil hat on, maybe we just threw in Brock Thomas just to make sure nobody was talking about the Oregon kicker battle. Do you think I'm crazy, Sam?
I don't know about crazy, but I will say what I will say is that I think that, it's not going to ever be an Oregon football team if there's not a little bit of hairiness when it comes to kicking. That being said, I was happy to see that Atticus Sappington wasn't the guy to have missed it this week. So, at least they're sharing the love, I guess. I don't know. I don't know if that's the best way to possibly put that, but I think in general, this Oregon team, we saw a massive improvement. And one thing that I would like to see a little better, we should probably do a little better job of holding on to the football. A couple of turnovers there that probably shouldn't have necessarily been happening, but compared to the week before, huge improvement overall. I think we were all pretty excited to see how this thing turned out. Again, 56-10, Oregon was able to get that win at Rutgers. Do you have any last thoughts on this one that we want to get out of the way before moving on to some other stuff?
I do. The one thing, it's another special teams negative, or maybe it's a positive for the offense, but didn't get to see a single Oregon punt. So
I know what's happening, man. Our guy Ferguson Reynolds is just sitting there.
As soon as we got to put him out there.
That's actually not fair. He's some great holds, holds.
But get him out there, get him some more action. I love to, as an offensive lineman, love to see it. Well, besides the turnovers, those technically, forego a punt. But you know what? Great offensive efficiency after that one initial turnover to start the game. Oregon scored after what, six of the first seven drives. So six straight drives, you go and you put up points and get in the end zone, man. You're gonna just overwhelm teams, whether they can put points on the board or not. That's very hard to keep up with. So again, as we say every week, secure the ball, and I think this is a complete shutout victory for the Oregon Ducks until you get some of the backups in there, and who knows. Who cares? Get those guys reps. But yeah, to get out of a coast to coast visit 56-10 after a loss like Indiana just shows you that this staff, they really, everything they say in the media, they're really going back and they're coaching themselves. And you could tell, I think both sides of the ball, our schemes and our attention to detail was much more improved over the previous week against Indiana.
Also here, just to read off the drive chart for you, let you know how things went. You're right, we had that fumble the first drive Oregon did. After that, touchdown, 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 one run play, and then we went to halftime. Touchdown, interception, touchdown. There you go. That's pretty good if you ask me. That's not bad right there. And also, while we're talking special teams, really quickly, we got a couple more minutes left in this segment before our guest joins us, but somebody who I think knows a thing or two about special teams had a good little call out for something that happened. Oregon went for a 2-point conversion, got called for an illegal formation, right? It was an illegal formation penalty, and on the other side, it was an offsides penalty. They were offsetting. Former guest of the show, Jeff Palmer, somebody who knows about lining up for 2-point conversions, he says that was not an illegal formation. He says that it very well could have been an illegal shift or a false start, but he says that's not an illegal formation. I tend to believe him when it comes to this kind of a thing, but I'd love to hear your thought.
You add enough men on the line of scrimmage. I believe that the problem was, the refs were going to call something. I believe they might not have articulated it correctly, but I believe not being set would be the call I think they'd have. But yeah, I thought the design was great, and again, you had the right amount of people on the line of scrimmage, and again, then it's not like you're dealing with ineligible people in the backfield at that point. So I don't know what is ineligible about that formation. That's a pretty cut and dry kind of call, and something we were always kind of on the cutting edge of back in our day with Coach Graywood drawing those up. So it was fun to see, and I love the concept of just a 3-man tush push like right there. Hopefully that just is something that they could threaten with even more and come up with even better ideas, because I could see even there, you threaten with that, snap it underneath his legs and then pass it out to the side. Again, the numbers have to be there, but there's just some fantastic things you can do with a lot of those concepts. And it was always something in college. Guys were kind of drawn up and trying to bring up to Coach Wood once in a while, like, hey, what about this? And most got rejected, obviously. But every once in a while, we had some good ideas that got in there.
Well, you know what, Nick? I think that puts a bow on this one. Oregon, again, a 56-10 victory over Rutgers. A really solid game overall. As we know, Dante Moore was 15 for 20, 290 yards, 4 touchdowns, the 1 interception. Brock Thomas, 3 for 4, 45 yards. Also, I think Oregon did their job in terms of feeding the studs. All the guys got their run, whether it was Whittington, Davison, Hill. They all got plenty of option. Kenyon, Sadiq, DeCorey, and Moore. All of our guys really being able to get out there, get involved in this ball game. It was another great one for the interior defensive line, whether that's Bear Alexander or Maury Washington. The linebackers, they were flying around and hitting, and that secondary, they just looked better and better by the day. So special team stuff to clean up, sure, why not? But it wouldn't be fun if we got it all perfect.
No, it would not. And man, getting it perfect is it's going to be something we'd rather get during playoff time. Don't do it right now when it's October. Right now is great times to learn about your team, find out weaknesses, and attack those weaknesses. And Oregon certainly did after that Indiana loss. And well, wrapping a bow on this one, I'm very excited for somebody that's going to help us get ready for this Wisconsin week. No better guest we could have than one of our previous favorites, my favorite guest we've ever had on the show, former sports anchor at SportsCenter, and now master broadcaster on Twitch with his man Stan. Give it up for Neil Everett. All right, joining us again, guys. Most of you might know him from Sports Center, or our younger viewers might actually know him from Twitch. He's an Oregon legend. Give it up, guys, for Neil Everett. We're so glad to have you on, Neil. And first and foremost, we got to talk about the first thing, why me and Sam are dressed up this week in tie-dye. It's got to be the Grateful Dead. What do you think of the Grateful Dead uniforms and the Ducks spending this special game week tribute to the Grateful Dead and the many times they've been in Autzen Stadium?
Well, that's close to my heart on several fronts. One, the further bus that I saw, they've got the motor running and got it moving along. Lane County there. I was in the fraternity with Zane Kesey and Jed Kesey. They were my fraternity brothers at the Beta House at Oregon. In fact, Jed was my little brother in the house, and unfortunately, he was in that van accident. He was a wrestler, and we lost two wrestlers that day on their way to Pullman, and one was Jed Kesey. So he's been in my heart now for, Jesus, that's 40 years ago. That's hard to believe. And Zane, I've run across him once or twice since then. So to see some of the fellas on top of the further bus, and I remember being in the further bus back in the day, doing things that we did back in the day, and remember Ken Kesey being out at his house. Just enough said back in the day, and having quite a wild time. So it's nice to see the program embrace that. Hopefully the young men understand the significance and don't just think it's groovy patches and groovy colors. That was a true movement. It was a true expression. It was a statement on a way you wanted to live your life, on what was important to you. And so hopefully they understand the ramifications that come with accepting, even if it's just a 1 week invitation into the club. We're glad to have you. Now let's go take care of business.
Well, Neil, as you can tell, Nick's dressed and let his hair grow out for the occasion. I'm dressed and shaved everything except for this for the occasion. The only thing is, though, neither one of us have actually been able to have that Grateful Dead in Eugene experience. Looking back on some of the concert dates, I saw that they were in town 7 times while you were a student at the University of Oregon. Were you able to attend any of those shows, and did the whole campus smell like that?
The first, I got into the Dead late. I got into it in 1980. I went to Willamette, and I joined the Beta House at Willamette, and there was a guy there who had seen the Dead 80 some times, and this was in 1980, and he said his goal in life was to work for the Grateful Dead, and I kind of put that information in my back pocket, never thinking it was going to be really that big a deal to have him have said that. And when Jerry Garcia died, and I remember it, I was in Sitka, Alaska on a salmon fishing trip, sitting at a library, and I heard Jerry died, and I started reading up on him, and they had a quote from the Grateful Dead tour manager, and his name was Cameron Sears. And Cameron Sears was the frat brother who in 1980 had said he was going to work for the Grateful Dead. So I went to my first show. It was New Year's 1985 in Oakland. I went to at least one of the shows at Autzen while I was down there. I definitely saw a Jerry show at the Holt Center with Melvin Seals. As I mentioned, we hung out with the people that were affiliated with the cause back then, and when the Dead came up and played Autzen a few years ago, maybe it was before the pandemic, though, had to have been, I think. I remember going to that. I went to the Sphere. I haven't been to 100 shows like some of these guys. I've probably been to 8 or 10, but it's a good time, and it was a good time then, and it's hard to believe it, but it's still a good time.
Well, and we not only have great outfits here at Once a Duck, we also have a superb research team. Understand that you were also a fellow offensive guard with me in that time at Willamette University. What was that like?
I didn't play at Willamette, but I did play on the offensive line in high school and the defensive line. And I was 150 pounds soaking wet. So you would have steamrolled me had I tried to take that to the next level. But it was good fun back in the day. We all of us played all the sports, and it beat going home. So you played as many sports as you could, and football was a fun one for me back then.
I knew that's why we always connected. And one other thing that we've really connected on in the past, besides football, is just that Oregon camaraderie. What's something really special about Autzen Stadium that you have to explain to people that haven't ever made the trip out to Eugene?
Well, I guess, Nick, it might be that, it really went through some tough times. The last Civil War game I was at was the 0-0 game. The last tie in college football, apocalyptic rain that day, although it never rains at Autzen Stadium. And, I just, the program really, we got that Rose Bowl against Penn State. It had been like since the 50s since we'd been in one, I think. I just, to come out on the other side and, it started, from Rich Brooks to Mike Bellotti to Chip Kelly. That was a good. That was like running a relay race, and we had pretty strong runners, and Brooks was a strong runner, and Bellotti was a stronger runner, and Chip, despite his body, was a speedster, and really took us to the put our names on the map. And I still remember that Auburn game. They kicked the field goal, and I remember looking at Chip Kelly standing on the sidelines, and he was just staring at where that ball had gone through the uprights, like he could not believe that ball had gone through, and we had lost that game, which was unfortunate because the guy, the quarterback, who's named Cam Newton, he didn't have a good game that game. He was right for the taking, but that dude on the defensive line, I think his name was Nick, wasn't it?
Nick Fairley.
Nick Fairley.
Yeah, that dude ate our lunch. Oh my God. But then there was that one call where the guy's, his knee wasn't down. And it's like, yeah, but if we hit him when he's down close to the ground like that, you're probably going to get a late hit. So you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. But hey, they won the game, and it was cool to be playing for it. That's all you can ask is for a chance. I think that's why there were so many sad faces the other night for the Mariners to be that close to having a chance to play for it all, and coming up just that short. It stings, but it's also, now you're in the conversation. The Mariners will be in the conversation from here on out unless they really dip into oblivion.
Well, Neil, I've got one more Grateful Dead question to ask you before we move on to the full rest of the conversation. And it has more to do with the atmosphere, the environment. We always see like the great pictures from Autzen Stadium, the different people who would come through, whether it be Bill Walton, whether it be any one of the other celebrities who are going to be there with the headband and the tie-dye, enjoying the atmosphere. Talk to us a little bit about the community that goes along with the Grateful Dead, whether it's those people who are going to 100 shows or it's just the folks who are getting to experience it for the first time. What is that experience like?
Well, it's just, you hit it on the head with the word community, and there just becomes a brotherhood, a sisterhood of people attending one. And, and again, I'm not in the deep end with the Grateful Dead at all, but just to be able to have jumped in one form or another and come out all right. And it's just, I just remembered I went up to San Francisco and saw a show not that long ago, and that was supposed to be the end of their touring. And then it's like, well, they're going to Vegas. That's not a tour, that's a residency. And then it's like, well, now they're going back up to San Francisco, but that's not a tour because that's where they're from. I don't know how to explain it except that it's just it's a good feeling. It's a good vibe. you don't have some of the recklessness that you might find at another show. Here's what it is. No amateurs go to the Grateful Dead shows. Okay. You can go to a show in Ridgefield, Washington, and there's amateurs in the crowd. Okay. I'm sure you can go to so depending on who the band is. So no amateurs go to Grateful Dead shows. I think that's probably the best way to sum it up.
Oh, and as a Hawkinson kid, I love any chance I can to diss on Ridgefield, but that's a deep cut. There's the lowest percent of people gonna understand that one. But hey, hail to the Spudders. I got to say, though, one thing that we hear in terms of brotherhood consistently is from these Dan Lanning teams is how much that's being cultivated by Coach Lanning. Last time we talked to you, the team was still under Mario Cristobal. Cristobal went for his homeschool, became a familiar trend before that. How do you feel about Coach Lanning and his tenure so far, and what's been your impression?
Well, I mean, he went from Dan who to Dan the man. I just, he appears to be clicking on all cylinders. It's hard for me to believe that guy's not even 40 years old. The respect that he commands. I don't know him well. I was blessed to be able to hang out at a little dinner one time when they named me an honorary captain. So that was cool to be sitting next to him. And he's pushed, he's said all the right things, and he's done most all the right things. And, we've lost a couple, but we've won way more than we've lost. His commitment to the university and not just saying it, but living it. And saying the grass isn't always greener on the other side. And where he did that little thing when it was like, oh, he's headed, people had him going to Alabama, and the next thing you know, he's putting out a little video. I don't know if it was a tweeter or a TikToker or whatever it was, but he's got the cigar, and he just looks like the dude. And he is the dude. And I think the players have responded to that. And the staff, and just I think we're really fortunate to have him, and I think we're going to have him for quite a while, at least until his kids get out of high school, I would imagine. I imagine the NFL is going to come calling for him sometime, and you can't blame a guy for wanting to succeed. Chip did the same thing, and you look how traumatized Chip was. I'm going, I'm not going, I'm going, but it's. I left Hawaii to go to ESPN. Sometimes you gotta leave your comfort zone to see what else is out there. And so I'm glad we have him, and I hope we have him a long time. I think he's a hell of a husband, hell of a man, hell of a football coach.
Well, just like the Oregon football program is lucky to have Dan Lanning, Neil, we're lucky to have you on the show right now. Again, folks, go check out the Stan and Neil show. It's on Twitch. You can go check it out. And then afterwards, if you want to go watch somebody play Fortnite, you can watch them do that too. But definitely watch the Stan and Neil show first. If you don't mind, Neil,
we put a lot of work into that title. Okay,
it looks great. I checked out an episode before we came on here, and I've got to say, I'm a big fan of the medium. As somebody who's continually doing these kind of things and producing these, I'm a big fan. It looks great.
Oh, well, that's good, because it's been giving me a twitch just having to show up for it. But no, it was a chance to work with Stan and our producer, Jeff Anderson from back east. And, I won't say there'd been a clamoring for it, but, it was something to do. And I got a few gigs going on, but I could make time to hang out with Stan anytime. So hopefully it resonates with some people.
Well, I can tell you I've been clamoring for it. And one of the things I've actually been looking forward to is I did have within the context of what we do on the show, a semi-serious question for you, if you're willing to answer it. And it's just one that I want to ask you more than anything as a journalist. We are in a time right now where I would say journalism's at a little bit of a crossroad, whether it's with sports, whether it's with other things in our world right now. I would love to get your perspective on the general landscape of journalism in general right now, whether that's with sports or otherwise. And then also, I would love to hear from you whether there's an organization or an individual who you think's doing some really good work right now.
Wow. Well, we just went into the weight room and you put weight on the bar for me. Uh, um, wow. Well, it just seems that we're very divided in everything that is going on in this country, and uh, if you write something that you're gonna please half the people, and the other half you're not going to, and um, only if you had an agenda in writing or saying what you said, or is that your opinion? That's your opinion, and you don't have an agenda. And I think everybody points fingers and says that if you write something that they don't agree with, you had an agenda. And that's unfortunate, because you can write or you can say something. I can write or say something that Nick doesn't agree with, but that doesn't mean I had an agenda. And that doesn't mean that Nick and I can't, have discourse and be civil about it. So I think, unfortunately, that's where we are for whatever reasons. And there's probably a lot of reasons we don't need to get into. And as far as anybody that's doing it at a different level right now, wow. Listen, my man Stan is a very educated dude who I really think hits it right down. Presents facts the way they should be presented. He's a hell of a smart guy, and I got great respect for him. I just don't know that I'm in the deep end enough in the journalism scene to think of somebody right now. Maybe it'll probably come to me right after we get off the air, and I'll be like, oh, I should have said that guy. They stopped printing the box scores in the LA Times, so I canceled my prescription, and they gave it to me where it's on my computer, and I don't like reading the newspaper on my computer. I like having the print in my hands. Same with the Oregonian up there. It's so thin now. So I'm not as, I read more sports stuff than I do news stuff. So, I mean, I read Tyson Alger. I read John Canzano. I read The Godfather, Dwight Jaynes. I read all about stuff going on in Oregon, because like the guy saying, my heart's in Oregon.
Well, on to more of the journalism TV media form. I got to ask, you were a legend to people like me and Sam, because you were able to show a lot of your personality on TV where a lot of people were just expecting suits. What about some of those great Sports Center anchor moments do you remember that you really hold on to? And do guys like Pat McAfee and Dave Portnoy have to owe you a cut of their check, because you really entered that entertainment sports reality to be as popular as it is right now?
That'd be something if get a cut off what either of those two cats are doing. More power to them. I think the thing that really stands out, Nick, like I was on the phone with Kenny Mayne today, and he had just lost one of his best friends had passed away, and just to have a real conversation with the guy that I have so much respect for. Ditto for Scott Van Pelt, ditto for Stan, as I mentioned, ditto for a lot of these guys, Levy, Lloyd, Linda Cohn, Boomer. I mean, Boomer was the first guest we had on our Twitch show, and it was like, wow, we got Boomer. We might be one and done, because he was so good, and he is so good. So you're I don't know if I'm answering your question, but the relationships that I made with individuals is far greater than any show I did with any of them. But I think we had a good time. We pushed the envelope a little bit. We got called into the principal's office a few times. We got told not to do that again. We did it anyway. And, it was a great run, changed my life. I'm so lucky. I was just hanging in Hawaii, and I get a call basically from ESPN to come audition. So that was not something I ever had planned, had ever envisioned, had ever dreamt. And yet it worked out. So who's luckier than me?
Well, Neil, you know that you're doing a lot of fantastic work right now. I know something that Nick wanted us to get to, and I want to just be able to ask it before we get too much time taken out of your day. We know that you've got something big coming up for the a big basketball game that we have coming up this winter between Oregon and Gonzaga. We'd love to hear a little bit about what you're going to be doing around that matchup. And honestly, I'd also love to hear a little bit of your thoughts on where this Oregon basketball program is.
Well, I'll answer the last question first. As long as they got Coach Altman, they're gonna scratch and claw and give you all they got, win or lose. So there's no quitting him on the sidelines. And if you plan on playing for him, you better have no quit in your game. So he's a hell of a coach. If he doesn't, he should be in the Hall of Fame. He will be in the Hall of Fame when he hangs it up. So have great respect for Coach Altman. They they called and said, "Hey, will you be the ambassador for this game?" And it was the former athletic director. It was through the former athletic director Pat Kilkenny, and it was Johnny Fontaine with Don Corleone. I'm like, I'll do anything for my godfather. So yeah, whatever he needs. And so I just kind of, I'm just kind of learning about it as we go. I did not realize that Oregon and Gonzaga hadn't had a scheduled game. Haven't played on the mainland United States since like 1983, I think it was. I guess they played once in the Bahamas and once in Maui. So listen, it's the Far West Classic isn't there anymore, but this seems like a nice way to revive at least the memory of it and put out two teams that are constantly very good and coached by very good coaches. And what's interesting is, Mark Few went to Oregon and he was there the same year as I was. And when I met him 100 years ago, after we were both onto our professional lives, and I was at a fundraiser in Spokane and I met him officially. And he said, "I can't believe we didn't hang out together at the University of Oregon, seeing as we both went there during the same time." And I said, "Mark, had we hung out at the University of Oregon back then, you wouldn't be nearly as successful as you are now."
Oh, wow. Well, that's really special. Congrats, Mr. Ambassador, and also previous game captain. Was that time you were game captain the last time you were at Autzen Stadium, or when was your last time at Autzen Stadium, and when's the next time you plan to go back?
Okay, I was gonna go this weekend. Unfortunately, I had my Aunt Mitty passed away, and her celebration of life is Saturday, and so we've got the family gathering in Portland, and because with the whole Grateful Dead thing, I was like, oh, I got to go to that. That was my game. I like to go to at least one game a year. I will be honest, I've lost a little juice for the big picture, given the death of the Pac-12. I'm watching a steamroll Rutgers, but you couldn't pay me to go back to that game. There's nothing. It felt like a non-conference game. And we scheduled Rutgers, and I understand that. Hey, that's business. Hey, listen, I still have an 8-track tape player and a VCR, so I can handle disappointment however I want, or I can handle the life's moving on however you want. I don't like it, and so I don't. It's not the priority it always was. I mean, I would be at Arizona State, I would be at Cal, I would go to Stanford, I would definitely go USC, UCLA. I'm not going to Penn State. I'm not going to Rutgers. I'm not going to Wisconsin. I'm not going to Maryland. I'm not going to Minnesota. I'm not going to Iowa. I do want to come back to Autzen though, and I'm hoping that I get that chance later in the year. The last time I was there. Well, I remember the last time I saw the Ducks play was at the Rose Bowl, and that was a short game, unfortunately for Oregon. But Ohio State was so good that day. And you know who I was sitting next to? I was in some Rose Bowl swinging box, and the box next to me, and they're like the chairs were right next to each other. So our box ended, and then the next box started, and I'm sitting next to Cardale Jones, and
Oh,
I'm like, God, I'm sitting next to the guy who put it on us when Mariota was and when we were in the last title game. I'm sitting next to him, and damn, the score was about the same too, and we got to put on again. It'll be too soon if I ever have to sit next to another Ohio State fan, but they've got a good team. Oregon's got a good team. I'm excited to, listen. It's all about the one that's in front of you. They're huge. We're huge favorites against Wisconsin, and hopefully we play like we did against Rutgers, because Oregon looked very, very strong against Rutgers. There's some good games out there. USC is going to be a good game. At Iowa is going to be a good game. At Washington is going to be a good game. That's always a good game. So people are like, "Oh, Oregon's going to run the table from here on out." I'm like, "Hey, man, let's just play them one at a time."
Well, Neil, you mentioned that Wisconsin matchup, and it's the last thing that we're going to ask you before we get you out of here. Oregon, Wisconsin, they've played some big games over the last couple of decades. Does one of them stick out as your very favorite?
Oregon, Wisconsin?
Yes, sir.
No, I don't. I have no memory of any of them. That goes back to your first question, the whole Grateful Dead experience.
Oh, well, Neil, with that, thank you again for coming on this week, and we hope it's another successful game against Wisconsin like we've had in our past couple Rose Bowl games. But
you know what? I was thinking an Autzen. I'm like going, I don't remember Wisconsin ever being an Autzen. Hell yeah, we beat him at the Rose Bowl. It was like we beat Russell Wilson, didn't we?
I was a starter on that team.
Beat Russell Wilson and then Jonathan Taylor.
I was at that game. There you go. Okay, I was thinking, hell, when's Wisconsin been to Autzen? I don't remember that at all.
Not since the Joey Harrington era.
If I forget that one, I can't blame the Grateful Dead, but CTE is a good cause right there.
There you go.
Well, thanks again for coming on with us, Neil. Any prediction for this game this weekend?
Yeah, 56-6, Oregon.
Ooh, love it. Thank you for coming on, and as always, once a duck, always a duck. Go Ducks.
Go Ducks.
Nick, it is always a pleasure to get guests on here. Maybe never more so than when we get an absolute legend, not just of the University of Oregon, but of the sports world in general, like Neil Everett. My goodness, it's such a pleasure to have a guy like him join us.
Yeah, and we texted him thanks and condolences to his family after, and then text back, well, I thought I talked a little long. Neil, there is never
no such thing.
No, there is only too long for us in terms of paying the subscription to actually have this this Zoom chat. So for those of you that don't know, Neil Everett is again my favorite sports broadcaster of all time, former Oregon Duck alum, and again the first guy and probably the last guy to give Rennie's a shout out live on Sports Center. Man, those were the days, Sam. Anyways, getting to the days we're in today, we asked you guys for a lot of your input this week. Sam, what do you got from our social media corner?
Well, I'll tell you what, we asked folks, what's your favorite memory from the several Oregon versus Wisconsin matchups of the past 25 years? And we just want to thank our listeners because we got a lot of answers for this one and a lot of really good ones. I liked one of the ones that you have coming up, Nick, because it involves a former guest of ours. Why don't you tell him what our guy at Ducky 808 had to say?
Yeah, let's duck and go. I love that. Anybody's username, but said his favorite was Brady Breeze's fumble return for a touchdown stands out. What really got me hyped was how Lanning and co prepped the team for jump around and in the Ducks versus them recap last year. Not actually a part of the game, but it was pure gold. And yeah, it was definitely one of those great coaching moments that we've seen from Lanning, turning the team's motivation kind of from another team against them. And that's really something that is when you are able to use that and focus and know that that's going to be coming at some point in the game and you're already prepared for it, it just goes on to your added preparation for the week, and it's just something you're that much more confident in. And especially for them to have the balls to be jumping up and down when it's in that tight game situation, I love it. That's just a level of confidence and trust in your game plan.
Well, you know what? Sticking with the theme, at least to the first part of that answer, with that 2020 Rose Bowl game, I did happen to post a little GIF of Justin Herbert celebrating to go along with that message. And a follower that, I really appreciate being able to see on the timeline from @thatlawyer Lisa. She wrote, probably that game right there in reference to that GIF. Cristobal let Herbert shine. And boy, oh boy, was that the case in that ball game. I know that's one that we were each at in person. Being able to see Justin athletically be able to spread those wings was fantastic.
Yeah, that leads right into my next one from Mark Quigley at Notorious Quigs. The control in the trenches, or wait, no, but no, wanted to say the DAT, D'Anthony Thomas, show favorite we're hoping to get on this season in the Chrome Dome. But Herbie's long touchdown run right there again was iconic for me. And yeah, that one was amazing. We were right there in that end zone, Sam. I remember it happening. Well, I don't remember it as much as clear as yesterday, but I remember it clearly in front of us and realizing that, wow, Justin really just willed this team into that win.
I mean, 3 touchdowns on the ground. He was doing absolutely everything he could in that ball game. Another one that I wanted to get to because I love the conversation that could spring from this one. Nick, believe it or not, Oregon and Wisconsin have played a couple of games in Autzen Stadium before. Do you have any idea when the last one was?
Oof. Well, way before my time. Again, yeah, I think we were talking about it with our previous guest, but what's the actual answer?
Well, I'll tell you what. Our guy, Eric Hovland, at Eric J. Hovland, he's the one who suggested this answer, and it is a great one. It was the first game of the 2001 season, a season that ended up being a huge year for Oregon football, a win in a BCS bowl game. And what started that season off? Joey Harrington diving into the end zone to win the ball game. As he says, Joey Harrington's dolphin dive in 2001. He even included a clip. And you know what? We're going to retweet that right now. I'm posting it right this minute. That play right there is a huge one. Without that, who knows what happens that season? An awesome moment. And that started what is now currently a 4-game winning streak for this Oregon football team against the Wisconsin Badgers.
Man, what a great answer and response. And glad we have those folks out there because I'm like, that's right around the time, I'm 11, 10 years old. And that's when my first memories of the Ducks are, again, those Joey Harrington. And then when the uniforms could be completely different than anything else in college football. And, as a kid in Southwest Washington, there was, memorabilia from all the schools, but all the Duck gear always looked the coolest out there. Going on to our final, at least the final tweet I've got here from a guy I love and respect and got to buy him a beer this weekend. Mighty Oregon 76 said easily 2020 with Justin Herbert. And man, that moment again, just everything that team kind of overcame and the difficulties of that game and the offense just really just kind of sputtering out in the passing game and Herbert really putting it on his legs. Man, I still just remember the emotions of that game at the end because I know I was crying. I know, we were both there. And yeah, that one was definitely a huge game. And yeah, I think, again, not as much love as I expected for that 2012 team, though.
Well, you know what? That might be coming in just a second, but I do want to point out what's so incredible about that 2020 game is the amount of talent that Wisconsin team had was no joke. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor was their running back. You can't forget, though, Jake Ferguson, Dallas Cowboys star. He was a tight end for that team.
Yeah.
That was a really, really good ball club that Wisconsin brought in for Oregon to finally be able to play the way everybody knew they could play. And see them do it on that day, on that stage. It truly was, at least for me, one of the great all-time Rose Bowl memories. But for our final answer, this one's from Christy Paulson on Instagram. Thank you, Christy, for reaching out with this one. Rose Bowl 2012. The one that you were looking for, one that we're going to talk about here for just a couple of minutes, because I think this game means a lot to both of us for very, very different reasons, obviously. You had a much more personal experience with this game than I ever did. I just remember it being a game where me and my dad, we went to the Baghdad Theater on Hawthorne in Portland, watched it up on the big screen, seen you guys come out in those chrome helmets. One of the most fantastic things I remember witnessing as a young football fan. And then as a kid, who might have been scarred by the results of the postseason games the couple of years prior, seeing you guys get over the top and win that game, my goodness, I don't remember very many times being that purely happy as an Oregon Duck fan. But Nick, share a little bit of your experience, because my goodness, if that's not one of the all-time greats that you remember, I don't know what is.
Well, something of a Hall of Famer from that period of time. I gotta tell you guys, that was one of those days. The Chrome Dome was awesome in the second half. In the first half, it was so reflective because they didn't think at the time necessarily to make the inside of the face mask not chrome, because with that California sun coming down right with the early like kickoff, as soon as the sun is right at its highest and brightest, man, it was just really, really wild to sit there and go down. And I am completely blaming the face masks for my false start in that 2012 game. But if you look at the talent in that game on both sides of the football, I mean, again, Russell Wilson just barely at the very last couple seconds of the game, as I'm clutching the Gatorade to pour on Chip, is not able to stop the clock for one more play. We also have the scenario of just the play before John Boyett nearly knocks out one of their wide receivers. And I am still convinced to this day, as I've said on previous podcasts, I am so thankful that Russell Wilson did not just try to get the ball snapped and get a pass off, because I think John had knocked himself silly at that point, because that was always a guy that put 110% into every hit he made on the field, and that sealed us the ball game right there. And just right then, it was that moment of, all right, did they call it? Did they call it? And I get to dump the Gatorade right on top of Chip Kelly, and then take that same Gatorade that I just dumped and go find my family in that corner of the Rose Bowl right next to our benches there, and get to go celebrate with my family. So that was, as the confetti's coming down, that will be what I always remember as a highlight. And as a low light, especially during that game, my defensive end, I've got him locked up. I think he's not going to get anything on Darren Thomas all night. I'm going to keep him nice and clean. And unfortunately, on the left side, I'm not going to put any blame on anybody, but we give up a sack and a forced fumble, and my defensive end ends up getting a touchdown. And there's just, Mark Asper had a better chance of chasing him down than I did, because I was I was dealing with an ankle injury at the time, and I knew as soon as I saw it in his hands, I thought, oh no, there's no way. I'm literally hinged up at the ankle with a full brace on. There's no way I'm catching him. But thankfully, we were able to create enough offensive production to come out on the positive side and win that game.
Well, a couple of things about that one. You mentioned the sunshine. 81 degrees that day. That is a heck of a January 1st, if you ask me. That is about as warm as you're going to find it just about anywhere that type of this side of the country, I should say, that time of year. Also, my goodness, who could blame you? Coming back from that little tweak in the Cal game. I'm not surprised, man. They have had to do everything they could to keep that ankle stable. I'm just glad you were able to get out there and keep Darren clean the rest of that ball game as much as possible.
Or Oregon State was the ankle, but yeah, it was fine. It's fine.
Then what got you in the Cal game?
Oh man, that's just that lack of athleticism. There was a lot that season I was pulling through, but yeah, lack of athleticism is a constant.
Like that was truly one of the fantastic ball games. Just a little while ago, I'd put up some highlights from that one, just because it really does stand out as one of the most electric ball games in Oregon football history. Whether it was some of the big hits in that ball game from guys like John Boyett, from Kiko Alonso, from Michael Clay, whether it was some of the absolute just lightning bolt moments, whether it was DeAnthony Thomas, 2 rushes, about 150 yards on the ball game, whether it's our guy, former friend of the show, Lavassier Tuane, coming down with that MVP award, 2 touchdowns, over 150 yards. Just one of the all-time Oregon football games for so many reasons, from the uniforms to the setting to the moment to the performances. Just one of the great games.
And another moment to call back to earlier in the show, another one of those moments that something we had so long practiced for, ends up turning out to be completely perfect. Chip comes out and, we need to get a first down and run the clock out. And Chip literally gives us 3 plays back to back to back that are just basic plays, but we know as that same offense out there and how to run them, and basically just a slight twitch from what our normal 3-play rotation calls would have been. And we go out there, we execute it, we get a first down, and are able to start milking that clock and get it down there. Tried to get it down into, field goal range and that, but at that point of the game, you're just sitting there and you're really just trying to, as late and long as that game went, with as many people that were on that Wisconsin team that could have been potential threats. We were really just trying to eat the clock, which not something Oregon was asked to do very often back in that day.
Well, Nick, I do have to ask you one thing. I'm not sure I've actually ever asked you this before, specifically about a play in this game. Where were you when Chip Kelly was jumping up and down, showing off the ankle socks?
On the interception?
On the forced fumble.
The fumble on the sideline with the classic picture. Yeah, I am hovering, I believe, around that time around the Gatorade. Like, I'm pretty sure I'm already thinking about it there, and I'm checking on, like, all right, what's our situation? I'm making sure, guys, especially some of the special teamers, making sure they know, like, I want that Gatorade ready to go. So, yeah, once we get the game plan locked in with the offensive linemen and, you're just waiting to get back out there on the field, you're also sitting there, I'm looking and going, yeah, all right, which one's going to be the one that we dump on him? Those were already the things. Of course, I was so confident. I was locked into our game plan, but I remember being like, yeah, I got him for the Pac-12 championship. I got to dump this on him for the Rose Bowl.
You had to finish the job just the way Terrence Mitchell did, punching out that ball, and Michael Clay did, jumping on top of it. My goodness, what a ball game that was. I have a feeling a picture from that game is going to end up being the cover for this episode, as I'm sure it has a couple of times already. But you know what? When it's a game that's that big and that fun, it's worth doing. But we need to move on to this week's ball game. It's the reason you're dressed the way you are with the hair flowing. It's the reason I've got this disgusting thing cut out on my face and have the tie-dye on. Nick, it's a Grateful Dead week. It's homecoming weekend, and it's a game with the Wisconsin Badgers. A little bit different version of the Badgers than maybe Oregon was seeing in those Rose Bowl games, but nonetheless, another Big Ten opponent, 4 p.m., Fox Sports 1 in Eugene, Oregon. It might be pouring, but it never rains in Autzen Stadium.
It never rains, and hopefully if it does, you guys are as well prepared as I am. I've got my ponchos ready, but I've got belief. I believe we'll make it through the worst of it and underneath the tents of the T-Rod tailgate. So I'm thinking, man, it's going to be a great time. I'm very, very excited. I'm going to be able to go out there. Might potentially be my last game of the season. We'll see a little more about that for you guys potentially in future episodes. But the biggest thing is Autzen Stadium. You get to come back home after a big win. It is technically our homecoming, I believe, right?
Yes.
And yeah, now I'm very interested to see if you can package everything that you're able to take on the road and execute it at home without overlooking this team. This is a team that has had significant injuries and just completely got their butts kicked by the number one team in the country last week. So you could understand some complacency on both teams' ends here, and it's just going to be a matter of which team comes out and really wants to play. And you can say that on many days, but biggest thing I'm excited for, not another 12:30 kickoff. I know there was a little lingering time there where they're saying it's either 12:30, 4, or 4:30. That 4 p.m. slot I know is what we both wanted, and it's the best way to be able to experience Autzen without having to get up too early and be able to sleep in a little bit. And hopefully, man, it's going to be a great day for all the Ducks that are there and all the Wisconsin Badgers fans. I hope they also have a great time because, man, what a great fan base. I know in our interactions that we've had with them and the 2 times I've been at the Rose Bowl, and they've just been awesome. So, yeah, hopefully they are able to enjoy themselves and instead of jump around, they can experience shout.
Well, you know what? Wisconsin fans, like so many Big Ten fans, they travel very well. I'm sure there will be plenty of red in the stadium. Maybe not as many as there would have been had this team won a few more games heading into this one, but I do expect there to be a fair amount of them there. And they're going to be there to watch their team absolutely do as much as they can against this Oregon team. How much that'll be, We're not really sure yet, especially considering, some, as you mentioned, a lot of the injuries this team has been dealing with. They lost a starting quarterback earlier this season. I think they might actually be down to someone who is technically considered to be their third stringer if you were looking at the spring roster or looking at the roster in training camp. And really, this is a team that they've struggled. They've really struggled of late. They had opening wins against Miami of Ohio and against Middle Tennessee, but after that, a loss at Alabama, a loss to Maryland, a loss at Michigan, a loss to Iowa, 37-0, and then a 34-0 loss to the number one team in the land, Ohio State. I know I watched a fair amount of that Ohio State game. It really did just look as if Wisconsin wasn't able to get anything going throughout that game. Never really did we see a situation where they were able to put like a long drive together. I believe the longest drive they had of the entire game, they had a 10-play and a 9-play drive that both resulted in no points in the fourth quarter. Before that, they had one 9-play drive in the second quarter that also resulted in no points. A lot of punting going on right now. It is the Big Ten. You're not playing Iowa yet. That's in a couple of weeks from now. But you never want to overlook an opponent. You never want to be too far ahead of where you are right this moment. And this Oregon team, they're going to have to do the very best they can to deal with all of that mentally, as well as dealing with the team they are seeing on the field. In this last game against Ohio State, we saw a lot of Hunter Simmons, number 15. He was 6 for 12 for 54 yards, as well as an interception in this game. We also did see a little bit of Danny O'Neal coming in there. No, not the Danny O'Neal you Oregon fans know. It's not him. They didn't bring him out of retirement. Danny O'Neal in this game, he was 1 for 3, -5 yards. Really weren't able to get much going. In terms of running the ball, they really tried to do it to Yasamil. He had 11 carries for 30 yards. The running back who was pretty effective for them, though, you got to give credit, Gideon Ituka. He was able to have 35 yards on 4 rushes. But beyond that, they really did Ohio State did a really good job of bottling them up, as you would expect an Ohio State team to do.
Yeah, again, it's how much you read into last week's stats when you're against the number one team in the country that made Oregon look very similar in the Rose Bowl that Neil had mentioned. Yeah, it's not
No kidding.
It's not necessarily a great comparison, Mark, but again, as you mentioned, the
Shall
injuries.
we pop back to Iowa?
Well, yeah, again, the injuries and just the fact that they haven't seemed competitive, and all signs indicate that Luke Fickell is on the hot seat, and then potentially they're just waiting right now with the plethora of coaches that are being fired for just waiting for the right time to possibly move on. So who knows in this wild world of college football we live in now, but it sure feels good to be a Duck, Sam.
It feels good to be a Duck, Nick. And you know what? I never want to overlook an opponent too far. This Wisconsin team, they've struggled this year, but you know what? They're going to bring every single thing they have to Autzen. If they have one more big swing at them this year, it's going to be against this Oregon team. They've got a tough schedule coming up. And this is one of those back against the wall moments where, again, you don't really want to get caught. You saw exactly what happened when Penn State overlooked UCLA. That started an absolute snowball effect that's gotten them to where they are now, which is, dare I say, directionless. That's not something that you want to have happen. Do I think this Oregon team is similar makeup? No, not whatsoever. I think this Oregon team is a much more focused group, but you never want to overlook too far. And despite the injuries, this Wisconsin team, they're a Big Ten opponent. They're going to bring everything they have to this ball game. Oregon, you're going to want to play sharp. You're going to want to play clean. And more than anything, you're just going to want to be fundamentally sound in this ball game. Get out of there looking good. You've got another bye week coming up after that. Just play this game the best, strongest way you can. And you know what? Let's have some fun, man.
I'm always down for fun, and we know with the theme this weekend, the Grateful Dead, fun is going to be at the forefront. I can't wait to see everybody out there tailgating early. I know, that's the other fantastic thing. Getting a little sick of breakfast foods to tailgate for, so actually getting to have like a lunch or dinner menu item before you go into the Autzen Stadium experience is always a benefit. Hope to see all of you guys there. I'll be dressed in the following, so I won't be hard to find. And make sure you guys give us a shout out, whether it's in person or out there on the interwebs. Make sure you share this episode and all future and previous episodes. Like and subscribe. Share with your friends. Make sure you're following us on all the relevant social medias at Once a Duck.
And Nick, before we get into predictions, we have to pay off something we teased earlier. It's time to talk Grateful Duck jerseys.
Mm-hmm.
Man,
Yeah.
I'm excited to break these down because these are a lot of fun. These look fantastic. I'm really, really excited to be able to see Oregon roll out there on the field. What was your first reaction when you saw these unveiled early Sunday morning?
First reaction is what I think most people that had heard the rumors but hadn't seen the product was, thank goodness, not that much tie-dye. I think,
A
again,
responsible amount of tie-dye.
a responsible amount of tie-dye. And my second thought is a fat two-number guy. I love the fact that we get a little bit more of the pattern than those single number guys because they're always wanting to look all skinny and fancy in their single digits. But hey, a real square two digit, that's where it's at when you get the tie dye. I can't wait to see what it looks like on a good 69. A 69 is what it's probably going to look most perfect on.
Well, and I'll tell you, this is something that, from a retail perspective, I was really happy they went with the decision to make the jerseys all number 90. I know that it's based off of having the concerts at Autzen and all of that stuff and celebrating all of those events 35 years ago. But the fact that, again, you get the two blocky numbers on there, you're able to spread out that tie-dye a little bit more than it would be on just a number 1 jersey that they've been selling so much of over the last few years. Really good retail decision there, just to be able to let that pop a little bit more. Now, talking about the actual jerseys themselves, let's start with that helmet. For Oregon, what's something that's been new this year is that a lot of the helmets in years past, wings have always been painted on, and then they've added stickers around that. That's changed this year. Every helmet besides the black one that you've seen wings on, those have been stickers. The gold one with the green, that was a sticker. The shoe duck jersey, stickers. The one last week against Rutgers, sticker. The one against Indiana with the silver on the green, that was a sticker. The black helmet's the only one that still has the painted on silver wings. And that is exactly why you see people going, oh, why isn't the wing tie-dye? Because this is the one helmet that still has the painted on helmet. That being said, I also think it probably would have been a little bit too much if they had the full tie-dye wing on there. I love just having the tie-dye O on the back. It looks so good there. And then having the dancing duck logos across the back bumper. Oh, that is such a great touch.
Yeah, I thought everything, again, detail work is huge, and it is a lot easier to swap things out with stickers than paint. So
Certainly,
one of
certainly
it's
is. It gives you more options.
and you just hire that many more talented equipment people, which certainly Oregon gets the plethora of. Shout out to Kenny Farr, man, those guys do the best. But again, the work that it has to be done to be able to swap all those things out, especially after, imagine that equipment truck going on the
Oh
road
yeah.
all the way. But yeah, I imagine they've got logistics people for that. But again, this new era of college football just makes me think back to my days and just think like it was such a pain just to get to Tennessee. I couldn't imagine us going and doing completely new uniforms the week after that. But hey, you know what? Again, these guys, that's what they're paid to do, and it's the brand new era of college football we live in, and I'm glad to be a part of it and witnessing it, and I just love that. Again, I think it's still something, whether you are a Grateful Dead fan or not, you can recognize the tribute and appreciate little details that you might like about it, whether you're a fan or not. And I know Ducks fans, they just generally love it because, of course, it's the quality and the attention to detail and the story that matters. And when you're just able to do that on the side of being a great football team that's run by a coach that really has these guys playing for each other and bouncing back and on a pathway that makes me feel very confident about our future this season, you love to see it.
I mean, I completely agree with you. Talking just a little bit more about the look of these jerseys. All black, just like the normal black jerseys, but with the green tie-dye number. They've still got the black wings and the silver steel plating. And, of course, the modernized Oregon Duck and Nike Steal Your Face logo on the sleeves. That's a fantastic touch. One of my very favorites. I'm sure there are some Grateful Dead purists out there that don't quite love seeing the symbol be utilized in that way, especially in such a commercial way. But regardless of that point, it is a really, really great looking logo. I'm a big fan of that. Also, love the big bright nameplate on the back. The jersey numbers, they look really solid. If I had anything I would change about it, maybe just a little silver outline around that number just to make it pop and make it a little bit more congruent with all the other silver going on. But beyond that, love the fact that they kept it simple. Love the fact that it's on a nice black canvas, letting it pop and really show off. Also, Dante Moore rocking the rainbow shoes with it. Great call, kid.
Yeah, I'm actually looking for some rainbow footwear to rock myself this weekend. So hopefully it matches the jacket. And again, I love it. I haven't heard this much uniform critique from you since probably those jerseys, the breast cancer awareness we busted out. So love going through those details with you. And again, I think we knocked it out of the park with this one in terms of just being able to nail the theme and something that isn't too offensive to the fan that doesn't care about the theme. That there's just a balance there. And overall, as long as the players enjoy playing in it and representing the Ducks, that's all that matters because the pride that they go out there and take on the field, that's what makes us proud Duck fans. And regardless of the results on the field, that's why we're all out there supporting them. These guys play for each other, love each other, and again, that's the same way I felt when I was a Duck, and the same support I get from the fans, I feel like we get from Neil Everett when he comes on the show, and from everybody that helps support us down, especially those that give us your prediction in the comments. So, Sam, with that, moving on to predictions, I'm going to put you on the spot right now. What is your prediction for Oregon, Wisconsin this weekend?
Do they get 52 games in a row? Do they break that 50 mark or two? I know they can. That's the thing. They can in this matchup. They could if they wanted to. I'm not quite sure that they do, though. You know what? For this one, I'm going to put this at give me a 48-6 ball game on this one. I trust this Oregon defense to be doing a lot of what these other Big Ten defenses have been able to do and keep Wisconsin out of the end zone. I do think maybe a little later in the game we might see a couple field goals, maybe one early, maybe one late. But I also expect this Oregon team to get out there and do a whole lot of scoring, whether it's with a couple of field goals or maybe just another 2-point conversion that doesn't go quite right. I see this one finishing up, once again, 48-6 Oregon.
Oh, Sam, you of little faith. We're getting a shutout. It's homecoming. We're going to be bringing it all day. I'm excited. You're excited. We're going to go Oregon 51, Wisconsin 0. Shutout. Let's finally get one for our defense. Make it an absolute nightmare for them all night because we're just celebrating in Autzen Stadium. Make it a concert of the Oregon fans out there making as much noise as possible. You know what I mean if you've ever been there. Make their ears ring from the very beginning to the very end, even when the game is out of sight, and we're all going to have a groovy time.
That's the best way you could possibly put it, Nick. Peace and love to everybody out there. It is going to be an absolute blast of a ball game. I know that we're really excited to be out there. I can't wait to see you out at this ball game. I can't wait to see all of you fine folks as well out at this ball game. It is going to be a whole lot of fun. Homecoming is always such a great atmosphere. When you got shades like that, how could you not be having a cool time?
The dude abides. And shout out to everybody out there. Thank you for following us. Like and subscribe, share with everybody else. And as always, once a Duck, always a Duck. Go Ducks. See you Saturday.